So hello and welcome. My name is Jock McOrist, and together with Gerd Schmalz and Jelena Schmalz, we're going to tell you about some of the challenges that we face during this COVID era. UNE is famous for its online educational programs, and this is driven largely by the fact that most of our students are external, and so we've been a champion in developing online technologies for education in the higher education market. Nonetheless, COVID presented some new and interesting challenges, which have really forced us to rethink what do we want to actually assess in undergraduate mathematics. And so this is what we want to report to you about today.
So the following meme shows some features of our assessment practice and dilemma. The COVID-19 scenario has forced us to reflect on what we actually assess and how we assess it. And one of the problems we came up with is pictured here. From the point of view of a lecturer, we have this huge knowledge body of lectures which we try to pass to the students. Some of it is practiced in the tutorials. Some of this is then assessed in the assessment tasks. Students look at this picture from the other side. They want to do very well in the assessment tasks to get good marks. Then they reverse engineer from the tutorials how to do these assessment tasks, and only then some of them will refer back to the lectures and thus learn only a small part of what we want them to learn. And this is a problem with very fixed kind of assessment tasks that can be an increasing problem.
Our traditional form of exams is a supervised paper-based exam, and we ask conceptual questions or computational questions. It depends on the unit and the unit coordinator, and which skills actually do we want to test. But it's not the only problem with the exams. Very often exams could be not fear, because some students have exam anxiety. To alleviate the exam anxiety, usually we let students to bring their own notes, which has such a consequence that students sometimes do not learn the material, but they just organize the exams. They organize the sample solutions from the last years and use these in the exams. So what we very often students who are not learning material come with the better grades, with the better marks, because they just can organize their skills. It's something what we would like to change in the form of the exam. What really worked very well with the traditional form exam is the supervision. It was very good organized, very well organized invigilation in pre-COVID times.
So, given we can't have in-person assessments, we're forced to look at online assessments. And here there are multiple challenges, particularly in mathematics. So first of all, you need to be able to have a way of inputting mathematical symbols. One platform that exists is called Mobius, which is well suited for mathematics and other hard sciences. And it really allows you to create online interactive exercises, as well as assessment tasks and tests. Okay. Now, it's very good for testing computational skills is very good for multiple choice questions, which can test, to some extent, understanding. But it's very poor for more advanced skills, particularly advanced conceptual skills in higher level mathematics. Another alternative is a take-home exam. So we had a take-home exam in the form of an essay. This is good for testing the understanding of material. It takes away exam anxiety, but is poor in terms of computational skills. We also looked at oral exams via Zoom. Here we solve the problem of plagiarism because we can see the person in front of us. We can very effectively test their understanding, but again, we're unable to really get much of a glimpse as to their computational skills. And finally, there's a blend of the above. So actually in all the courses we had some type of blend normally of these 3 different modalities of assessment.
Now we discuss our experience in the first trimester with examples are some of the units that we have taught. One of the units was the introduction to quantitative skills. For the exam, we used McOrist format, only McOrist format. We had many exercise questions in this format, so it was not a big deal to compose the exam. The students could practice the exams so much they wanted because the problem bank was really very large, and students have appreciated it. Eager students practiced it many times, and some of them had the aim to get 100%. There have been some multiple choice questions for understanding. What was really good in this exam, it alleviated the exam anxiety, and for lecturers, the marking was very easy. It was everything was automated marking, marked for such huge classes. It is really an advantage. Disadvantages of this sort of exam: it doesn't test communication skills, reasoning, and of course sketching graphs. Then we had some other problems. We do not know if this advantage or disadvantage, but for the exam students had to practice the McOrist format because they had to learn McOrist syntax. And if students have answered wrongly questions, but maybe they had some good ideas, in a paper-based exam we would give partial marks. In the McOrist format exam, they lose all these marks. So for this particular unit, the McOrist format worked not so bad. The problem was that about 1/3 of students opted out from the proctored exams, and the difference between the average marks was really huge. It was 20% the difference. And we have 2 explanations for this. One is that the most eager and diligent students have opted out because they just didn't want to do the proctored exam. And the other reason is, unfortunately, it is cheating.
So I would like to report on a second-year unit. BMath 212-412 is on multivariable calculus. The standard exam was based on McOrist, and it was proctored by ProctorU. After the exam, the students were asked to submit their scratch working in a time frame of 1 hour so that we could check their actual working. Most students choose this McOrist exam. They use the opportunity of practicing a previous exam in McOrist format, which I made available. And I think the results were pretty much adequate to what I expected. The alternative exam was a take-home essay, and it was focusing, or should focus, on the personal learning experience. And I should say I was somewhat disappointed in how the students did this alternative exam. First of all, it was not very popular. I did not very often see this individual component which I was looking for, and rather often got superficial summaries of the lecture notes, which did not show me how much students have really understood it. And also for this exam format, plagiarism is a possible issue, but it was very difficult to prove it or actually to follow that up.
So complex analysis is a advanced level or upper level mathematics course. And the nature of the beast is that it's very conceptual based, typically involving theorem proof type questions, as well as some computational questions. So you can't simply use a calculator to generate an answer. You really need to understand mathematics in the pure form to tell me that you understand this course. So how to assess this? So there are two mechanisms. One was very similar to what Gerd just described, which is to use Mobius. The advantage of this, it allowed any semi-conventional testing to happen at all. However, the questions, due to the technology, were really only effective for those of a computational nature. And the reason for this is something I alluded to earlier, which is the technology is not good enough to allow you to input mathematical notation very easily. So the only solution we could think of that alleviated this problem was to have students submit via either scanning or their mobile phone within an hour's window after the exam had finished, though this was unprompted. So in principle, plagiarism could easily happen. You could just copy down the solution from the textbook if you really wanted to. Now, as I said, this is really a technological thing. So if we had a technology such as tablets where students could comfortably write solutions, write mathematical notation, then this is something that is certainly feasible, but the technology just isn't there yet for this type of course. The alternative was a take-home essay, and this was surprisingly successful. Students were asked to show original insight. So I got insight into the understanding of students of this course that I otherwise wouldn't have had from a more rigid examination process that would ordinarily have happened pre-COVID-19. And this is maybe due to the fact this is an advanced level course, so students certainly, ability is not quite the right word, but they're certainly more enthusiastic. So they want to understand what the course really means beyond the remit of the learning outcomes. The disadvantage of the essay, though, is you cannot test their computational skills. So their ability to compute the contour integral is not possible through this mechanism. Most students in this course actually opted out of the online exam to do the essay, of the order of 60%.
Number theory. It is the unit on the third year level. In this unit, we hadn't had this problem with big, complicated formulae. And I have divided the exam, which was in Möbius format. I have divided into parts. One part was a calculation part. And students could practice this before the exam. And the second part was for the understanding, so some proofs, some reasonings. Unfortunately, some students have aimed only the computational part. They practiced it very eager and they have passed the unit, and it was a bit pity that they haven't even tried to learn more, to learn understanding. of the material, to understand the material. So the second part with proofs, the students could write in Möbius essay fields, or they could write on paper. The problem, of course, again, was that some students have opted out from the proctored exam. In this case, I suggested Viva Voce exam for randomly chosen students. They were not chosen randomly by me, but it was very interesting experience. It was my first experience in taking such an exams via Zoom. The problem was, of course, the students were very nervous. And I think if they would have these Viva Voce exams more often, that would help them to deal with this with their nerves. I asked students to explain their solutions, and this form of the exam worked actually well, and I was sure that I see the student that was the right student.
So I would like to summarize our conclusions. There is no satisfactory and absolute fair format of an exam yet we could come up with. Different sizes of classes and different levels require different exam formats. For instance, if we test quantitative skills rather than conceptual understanding, this has to be done in different formats. Also, big classes have additional restrictions. If we deal with small classes, we are more flexible with different options of exams. There is and there should be a strong connection between the exam format and type of questions we ask and the learning outcomes, as set out in the first slide. It is imperative that we must have a mechanism that ensures integrity. So either some kind of ProctorU-like invigilation or a Viva Voce exam. Otherwise, we can't be sure who actually sits the exam. And in terms of technology, we think the existing technology is not yet at the level to comfortably type mathematical formulae, and hopefully the future will give us better technology.